act as if you are the best, not second, not almost, not one of, the best. And not because you need the world to agree, but because you finally stopped arguing with your own greatness. This isn't arrogance. This is alignment. This is what happens when a person becomes unavailable for comparison. When you look in the mirror and realize no one's above you, no one's beneath you, but no one is better than you, because you've decided to be unmatched in your effort, unmatched in your discipline, unmatched in the way you show up, think, speak, move, not to prove anything, but because when you know who you are, anything less becomes insulting. You don't compete when you own your lane. You don't envy when you know your assignment. You don't chase when you attract through certainty. Act as if you are the best, and you begin to command life instead of complying with it. Everything about you sharpens. Your tone changes. Your decisions cut faster. You stop negotiating with procrastination and start executing with presence. That presence, that's what makes people listen before you even speak. Because you walk in like someone who already won the war inside. Not loud, not flashy, just grounded. And that groundedness, that's the mark of someone who doesn't hope to be chosen anymore. They choose themselves. They step into the day not wondering what it holds. They decide what it will become. Because the best don't wait for momentum. They are momentum. And if you want to reach that place, if you want to live in that energy, it starts in the mind. You've got to build a mind that refuses to flinch. A mind that doesn't spiral under pressure, doesn't bow to the opinion of others, doesn't hand over the keys to emotion. A mind that responds with reason and leads with identity. Because the strongest person in the room is not the loudest, it's the one whose self-image is anchored in truth. And truth sounds like this. I am the best because I said so. Because I've decided to master this craft. Because I show up when others sleep. Because I train when others stall. Because I execute without applause. Because I've made becoming undeniable my new normal. You're not chasing dreams anymore. You're stepping into a destiny built by design. That design requires belief, not just hope. Belief so deep, it becomes unshakable self-trust. The kind of belief that says, I don't need evidence to begin, I am the evidence. The kind of belief that doesn't shrink in the face of giants, it becomes the storm they weren't ready for. Because when you believe you are the best, you stop seeking validation and start delivering value. You walk into meetings like your name matters. You speak like your words have weight. You carry yourself like the mission depends on your posture. Because it does. You are the message. You are the frequency. You are the standard. And the best don't just raise the bar, they become the bar. So raise your standard. Raise your habits. Raise your daily minimums so high the old version of you couldn't reach them if they tried. And then watch what happens when life responds to your new frequency. Opportunities appear. People pivot around you. Resistance fades not because the world got easier, but because you got sharper. Sharper in focus. Sharper in your no. Sharper in your execution. And that sharpness, that's what makes the world take notes when you move. Not because you announced it, but because when you act as if you are the best, the world starts adjusting itself accordingly. Because life has no choice but to meet the person who refuses to lower their standard. And if you keep going, if you refuse to flinch, if you keep acting, speaking, walking, breathing like no one is better than you, eventually you make it true. And once it becomes true, not by title, not by applause, but by who you became behind closed doors, that truth becomes undeniable. You no longer need to explain your confidence. It's not ego, it's evidence. Evidence of the hours no one counted, the reps no one tracked, the sacrifices no one clapped for. You bled for this standard. You burned the old version of you for fuel. And now you walk not with pride, but with precision. Because when you act as if no one is better than you, you stop playing games you were never meant to play. You no longer crave attention. You command respect. You no longer fear competition because you compete with no one. You've outgrown comparison like a king outgrows war, not because you're afraid to fight, but because you've already won too many times to swing at shadows. You see, the best don't shout about being the best. They prove it in silence. They move with a calm so disruptive, it rattles the insecure. They show up with a presence so composed, it makes chaos feel uninvited. Because confidence isn't built in noise, it's built in non-negotiables. And your life becomes a fortress when everything you do aligns with this one decision. I am the best, not someday, not after approval, right now, because I decided I am. You decide it by how you train. You decide it by what you tolerate. You decide it by how you recover, how fast you return to who you said you are after setbacks. Try to call you back into who you were. That's how you know it's real. It's not that you never fall. It's that you don't stay down a second longer than necessary. You rise, like falling was part of the plan, because it was. Pain wasn't the enemy, it was the refinement. Every loss, a lesson. Every delay, a detail. Every storm, a stage to show the world what you've been building when no one was watching. And now they're watching. Not because you asked them to, but because when someone becomes the best, the world watches in awe and asks for the blueprint. But the blueprint can't be copied because the real blueprint wasn't the strategy. It was the standard. It wasn't the path. It was the posture. It wasn't the tactics. It was the tolerance for pressure, for pain, for being misunderstood and still pressing forward anyway. That's what they can't replicate because only the best move like that. And you don't just move like it. You are it. Now keep going. The world has seen many strong voices, but very few unshakable standards. Be that standard. Be the one who reminds everyone what greatness feels like when it walks in the room. Not loud, not desperate, just undeniably excellent. Every move you make from now on, make it like the best. Because when you act as if you are the best and no one is better than you, that act becomes your reality. And when it becomes your reality, the world doesn't argue. Because reality isn't up for debate when it's reinforced by unbreakable consistency. They might doubt your start. They might dismiss your style. They might mock your confidence. But they can't deny your results. Because the best don't ask for recognition. They become the reason others pay attention. And when you become that reason, you realize you don't need to compete. You set the pace. You walk into the gym, you raise the temperature, you step into the meeting, you raise the bar, you start the day, and the atmosphere adjusts itself to your energy. Why? Because you no longer carry the energy of someone hoping to win. You carry the energy of someone who already decided. You already decided this is yours. You already decided you'll outwork anyone. You already decided your self-worth doesn't expire when others misunderstand it. That's what makes you dangerous. Because most people are still negotiating with fear, still tiptoeing around their potential, still waiting for a sign to move. But not you. You are the sign. You are the signal that greatness is active. Not potential, not maybe, not someday. Now, this is the level where no one can out-discipline you. No one can out-focus you. No one can touch the work ethic built in the fire of your own refusal to stay small. Because you're not driven by applause. You're driven by alignment. And that alignment, it gives you a rhythm most people will never feel. A rhythm of high standards and low tolerance for excuses. A rhythm where you wake up with purpose, move with power, speak with presence, and rest with pride because you know you gave the day everything. This is what the best feels like. It feels like ownership. It feels like peace with your reflection. It feels like walking through chaos and not blinking once because you trained for this moment. And now that you're here, there is no going back. You've outgrown doubt. You've outgrown overthinking. You've outgrown permission. You're not waiting for the world to catch up. You are the pace. So walk like it. Lead like it. Serve like it. Build like it. Protect your standard like it's your birthright. Because it is. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity. And clarity doesn't come from volume. It comes from conviction. So speak your truth not for attention, but because truth deserves to be heard. Live your standard, not for applause, but because anything less would be betrayal. And act every single day as if you are the best. Because when you move like no one is better than you, eventually they realize you were right. And when they realize you were right, it won't be because you told them. It'll be because you showed them. Not once, not in moments, but every single day. Day after day, you built your case without words. Brick by brick, habit by habit, decision by decision. While they watched the scoreboard, you mastered the system. You mastered what they couldn't see. The hours of mental fortitude. The mornings you chose movement over mood. The nights you studied while they slept. The 1,000 no's you gave to convenience so you could say one powerful yes to your calling. That's what makes you the best. It's not talent. It's tolerance. Your ability to hold more pressure, more responsibility, more uncertainty, and still move forward. You carry what others drop. You endure what others escape. You finish what others fear to start. That's what separates you. And the truth is, you were always capable of this. You were just living at a fraction of your capacity until now. Until you remembered that the throne you were waiting for was already yours. You just had to sit in it. You just had to own it. Now you're no longer hoping to be seen. You're seeing yourself. And that self, it's non-negotiable. You no longer shrink to fit old rooms. You no longer delay to soothe someone else's discomfort. You no longer soften your tone to appease mediocrity. You rise. And in rising, you lift everything around you. Because real greatness doesn't suppress others. It summons them. It calls others higher. Not by force, but by frequency. You become the example, the proof, the walking, breathing permission slip that tells the world, you're allowed to be great too, but only if you're willing to pay the price I paid. And that price? It wasn't money. It was identity. It was letting go of the version of you that played small, that justified delay, that confused being humble with being hidden. That version of you is gone, and what remains is unbreakable, built in the fire, tested in silence, refined through discipline, and now unleashed. So walk with that fire, lead with that weight, and every time you enter a room, a decision, a conversation, carry yourself like the best, not to be better than others, but because no one is better than you when you are being fully, absolutely, unapologetically you. This isn't acting anymore. This is arrival. Now, hold it, live it, expand it, because the best don't peak, they multiply. And you're just getting started. You're just getting started. And that truth, it should terrify your old life. Because the moment you choose to stop shrinking, the old patterns, the lazy habits, the distracted identity, they all start gasping for air. They can feel it. Their time is up because you've stepped into a new current, a current of clarity, of direction, of refusal to break your own word ever again. You don't negotiate with weakness anymore. You don't entertain indecision. You don't romanticize your old limitations. You've buried the version of you who needed motivation. Now you move from mission. You move from vision. You move from a level of self-trust so deep it no longer matters if the world claps or criticizes. You know the difference between noise and signal. And your signal, it's locked in. It's clear, precise, unshaken. Because the best are not those who never doubt. The best are the ones who choose anyway. They act even when they're uncertain. They build even when the results are slow. They lead even when no one follows yet. Because they're not building for applause, they're building for alignment. And once you're in alignment, you become unreasonable, unreasonable with your goals, unreasonable with your time, unreasonable with your belief that you are the one. Because you are. You are the one who breaks the pattern. You are the one who says, it ends with me. You are the one who no longer fits in conversations that worship survival instead of strategy. You are the one who stopped asking, am I ready? And started declaring, I'm responsible. Because that's what the best do. They take radical ownership of their life, of their energy, of every outcome, good or bad. They don't wait for easy. They become excellent. And excellence? It's not a moment, it's a minimum. It's how you speak. It's how you reply to setbacks. It's how you show up when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching, because you're always watching. And when your own reflection knows you're serious, that's when the shift happens. You stop feeling like you're becoming. You start realizing you've already arrived. You've already stepped into the frequency where greatness lives. Now, the only job is to stay there, to protect it, to expand it, to multiply it. So stay in this. Live in this. Protect this posture like your legacy depends on it, because it does. And if legacy is what you're building, then every move must echo through time. Not just what you say, but how you live. Not just what you dream, but how you decide. Because the best don't leave legacies by accident. They engineer them. They construct them with habits, sealed with values, reinforced with daily execution. Legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what you live out loud right now so boldly, so consistently, so unshakably that the world remembers who you were long after you're gone. So let me remind you again, act as if you are the best. Because when you do, you'll move like your time is sacred. You'll speak like every word creates reality. You'll protect your peace like a kingdom under siege. You'll treat your calendar like a contract with your future self. No more leaking hours. No more low-effort conversations. No more living on autopilot. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to set fire to mediocrity by simply refusing to participate in it. Let others choose easy. You choose legendary. Let others aim for balance. You aim for mastery. Let others shrink into silence. You roar with identity, because that's what the best do. They don't look for comfort. They create impact. They don't chase certainty. They cultivate power. They don't wait to be discovered. They declare who they are and make the world adjust to their presence. And when they fall, they rise without drama. Because falling doesn't threaten their identity, it refines it. That's how you know you've become the best. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from framework. You stop wondering if you belong and start building like you own everything you touch. Because you do. Ownership is your default now. Responsibility is your rhythm. Execution is your language. And every day, the distance between who you are and who you were widens. Because you've stepped into the rare territory, the territory reserved for the few who are willing to pay with their comfort in order to purchase their calling. And your calling? It's not to be liked. It's not to be safe. It's not to blend. It's to build something undeniable. A reputation, a rhythm, a reality so potent, it inspires others to wake up and ask themselves, what if I started living like I was the best? That's how it begins. That's how the ripple spreads. And you're the one who triggered it. Now finish the mission. Finish it with conviction. Finish it like you started it. Acting as if no one is better than you. Because once you believe that and live that, no one ever will be. Because once you believe that and live that, no one ever will be. Not because you've beaten anyone. Not because you've crushed the competition. But because you finally outgrew the need to compare. You stopped measuring yourself against others. You started measuring yourself against what you know you're capable of. And that bar is sky high because you know what's in you. You know the strength that was born in your darkest hour. You know the focus that came from years of being overlooked. You know the clarity that came when you lost everything comfortable and still kept building. That's the difference. They got breaks. You built from the breaks. They had support. You became your own structure. They had belief from others. You had to believe in silence. And because of that, you don't flinch now. You don't fold. You don't fear. Because once you've made it through what tried to destroy you, you start carrying a presence that nothing can intimidate. Not failure. Not delay. Not judgment. You've looked those things in the eye and kept walking. And now you walk with weight. The weight of a name you've refined. The weight of a standard you've chosen. The weight of a legacy you're crafting every time you act like you are the best. Because here's the final truth. You never become the best by chasing. You become the best by becoming. By showing up when no one asked. By leading when no one followed. By sharpening every part of yourself until your very existence becomes the proof. And when your existence becomes proof, you don't just build a life. You build a movement. You become the reference. You become the reminder. You become the proof that when someone refuses to break, life has to bend. So this is the command. No more doubt. No more delay. No more diminishing your gift just to stay comfortable. From this breath forward, walk like you own the air. Speak like every word is a blueprint. Build like the world is watching because it is. You've come too far to be casual. Now you live as the standard. And every morning when your feet hit the ground, remind yourself out loud, I act like I am the best because I am. And no one is better than me. Act as if you are unstoppable, not because you never fall, but because you never stay down. Not because you never face resistance, but because you rise with a rhythm louder than your setbacks. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become greater than anything life throws at you. This world doesn't need more people who try. It needs people who decide. Decide that failure is not final. Decide that struggle is sacred. Decide that destiny is not something you inherit. It's something you embody. And embodiment begins when you stop waiting to feel strong and start acting like you already are. Because here's the truth. Nothing will test you like your own calling. The moment you decide to level up, the moment you claim your greatness life, will introduce you to every excuse you've ever believed. Every insecurity you've ever nurtured, every reason you've ever whispered to play it safe. But if you act as if you are unstoppable, you don't shrink in the face of resistance. You expand. You expand your courage. You expand your commitment. You expand your capacity for pressure, because pressure doesn't break the unstoppable. It reveals them. It chisels them. It sharpens them into weapons of purpose. The average wait for permission. The unstoppable give themselves the green light. They don't sit around explaining why they haven't started. They start. They don't argue for their limitations. They destroy them. They don't talk about someday. They move like now is the only time they'll ever have. And that movement is sacred. Because momentum is not a luxury, it's your lifeline. And when you act as if you are unstoppable, momentum becomes your most loyal ally. It shows up when motivation is gone. It carries you through the days you want to disappear. It keeps the fire burning when the world goes cold. But you have to protect it. Protect your energy like it's the source of your future, because it is. You can't be casual with your time and call yourself committed. You can't flirt with your goals and call yourself focused. You can't dance with distraction and still demand discipline. Being unstoppable isn't about being superhuman. It's about being self-honest. It's about facing the mirror and asking, am I moving like someone who expects to win? If the answer is no, then you shift. You shift your habits. You shift your environment. You shift your circle, your schedule, your story, because stories shape identity and identity shapes destiny. So what's your story? Are you the victim of your past or the architect of your future? Are you the one who almost made it or the one who refused to quit? Are you the dreamer or the doer? Every day you're writing the script. Every moment you're casting yourself in the role. And if you don't like how it's playing out, change the character. Act like the one who cannot be broken. Act like the one who hears no and turns it into fuel. Act like the one who shows up in storms and turns the thunder into theme music. Because that's what the unstoppable do. They rewrite the narrative. They don't deny their pain, they turn it into purpose. They don't erase the fear, they walk through it with fire in their lungs. They don't need the crowd, they perform for the vision. And that vision, it doesn't live in the clouds. It lives in your habits. The way you wake up, the way you speak, the way you enter the room, the way you do the work when it's boring, painful, and thankless, that's your vision in motion. You don't chase the dream. You become the dream. And when you become it, you stop waiting for the world to give you a stage, because your life becomes the stage. And everything about you begins to speak before you open your mouth. People feel it. They don't know what it is, but they feel it. They feel the certainty in your presence. They feel the edge in your discipline. They feel the weight of your focus. And they either rise to meet it or they fall away. Either way, you don't stop. You don't slow down. You don't shrink to fit their comfort zone, because your commitment is no longer conditional. It's non-negotiable. Your fire doesn't flicker when the wind comes, it grows. Your light doesn't dim to make others comfortable. It blinds excuses into extinction. This is what it means to act as if you are unstoppable. You train when you're tired. You speak life when it's hard. You show up when it's silent. You stay true when it's lonely. And you move, not because it's easy, but because something deeper than comfort is calling you forward. Something ancient, something primal, something divine. The knowledge that you were not born to break, you were born to bend reality. To bend it with belief. To bend it with boldness. To bend it with brutal, beautiful, consistent action. So act like it. Move like it. Lead like it. And watch the world transform around the one thing it cannot ignore. A human being who has decided, I will not be stopped. Because once you've made that decision truly, fully, irreversibly, you stop needing external permission to rise. You stop needing signs. You stop needing applause. You stop needing consensus. You just move. With thunder. With fire. With clarity that cuts through chaos like a blade. You move through rejection. You move through failure. You move through silence. Because nothing out there holds more weight than what lives inside of you. And what lives inside you now is unshakable. Your mind has become your weapon. Your body has become your temple. Your discipline has become your devotion. And your vision has become your vow. This is not hustle culture. This is sacred warfare. This is showing up to battle every day, not against the world, but against the weaker version of yourself and winning. Winning not through perfection, but through persistence, through presence, through radical ownership. Because when you act as if you are unstoppable, you no longer outsource your power. You take it back from doubt, from delay, from the stories that told you to stay small. And once it's back in your hands, you don't play with it. You build with it. You build a life so aligned, so intentional, so steeped in fire-tested truth that even the storms bow in your presence. Not because they're smaller, but because you're stronger. You've stopped hoping for easy. You've stopped praying for the path of least resistance. You've learned to love the climb, because the climb is where you hear your own roar. The climb is where your lungs expand beyond what you thought was possible. The climb is where you meet the future version of you, the one who was always waiting at the top, arms crossed, eyes locked, whispering, I knew you'd make it. But the climb demands something most won't give. Everything. Not some days. Not when you feel like it. Every day. And now you do. You give it. Because you're not trying anymore. You've already decided. You're not checking the weather. You are the storm. You're not watching from the sidelines. You are the game. You're done auditioning. You're done explaining. You're done waiting for understanding from those who were never called to see your vision. Because your vision isn't for everyone. It's for the few, the focused, the faithful, the fierce. And you are now one of them. One of the few who dares to rise when it's hard, who dares to walk alone when it's necessary, who dares to demand more from life because you've become more within. That's what it means to act as if you are unstoppable. It's not arrogance. It's accuracy. You're not inflating your ego. You're embodying your essence, because your essence has always been power. Your nature has always been fire. Your destiny has always been impact. And now finally you're walking in it, not as a visitor, not as a guest, but as the architect, the one who builds without permission, the one who moves without approval, the one who wakes up every day and breathes like victory is inevitable. Because when you act as if you are unstoppable, you become the one thing this world cannot ignore: a soul on fire, a life in motion, a force without reverse, unstoppable, unapologetic, unbreakable. Because the unbreakable aren't made in comfort. They're made in chaos. They're made in the moments no one sees when the tears hit the floor, but the feet don't stop moving. They're made in the fire, forged not just to endure it, but to become it. And that's who you are now. Not someone who avoids the fire, someone who is the fire. You don't get softer when life gets hard. You get sharper. You get quieter, but deeper. Slower, but stronger. You move with calculated intensity. You speak with the weight of someone who's been there. You stand with the posture of a person who already knows. I don't need to convince anyone. I just need to keep becoming the proof. And when you become the proof, people can feel it. They feel it in your presence. They feel it in your consistency. They feel it in your decisions, not driven by emotion, but anchored in mission. Because you're no longer guided by comfort. You're governed by conviction. Conviction that says, I may not have it all figured out, but I will never again stop moving forward. That kind of movement doesn't ask for permission. It asks for space. And if space isn't given, it takes it. Not with noise, but with non-negotiable presence. Not with ego, but with execution. Because now you understand. You don't have to scream to make impact. You just have to show up like someone who cannot be moved. And when life tries to shake you, let it. Because you've trained for this. Not in gyms, not in books, but in real silence. The silence where you chose progress over pity. The silence where you chose persistence over popularity. The silence where you chose legacy over likes. And now you don't bend, you build. You don't pause, you pivot. You don't complain, you create. You are the storm the world forgot was possible. You are the standard the old world couldn't contain. You are the voice that speaks without raising volume, because truth, when embodied, echoes. So let them watch. Let them doubt. Let them wonder. Because you won't explain your fire. You'll just keep burning. You'll keep rising. Keep sharpening. Keep moving like a force of nature, not because you want to prove something, but because this is who you are now. Someone who made the decision. Someone who made the shift. Someone who made it non-negotiable to ever go back to the person who waited. Because waiting is over. Wishing is over. Wavering is over. You are here now. Walking, breathing, creating, as if you are unstoppable. Because you are. And because you are, there's no more room for hesitation. There's no more time for doubt. There's no more energy to spend on second-guessing what you already know in your bones. That you were never made to live on the sidelines. You were born to take the field and change the score. No more shrinking to fit into boxes built by fear. No more silencing yourself to soothe the smallness of others. No more betraying your own potential just to feel accepted by people who haven't accepted themselves. You've broken free, and the air is different up here. It's not thinner, it's cleaner, purified by the breath of those who finally decided, I will not die full of potential. Because potential is a prison when you never do anything with it. But you've picked the lock. You've stepped out. And now, you're not walking with hope. You're walking with fire, with purpose in your blood and vision in your veins. You're no longer interested in becoming what's popular. You're becoming what's unshakable. You're crafting a life so fiercely aligned, so purposefully designed, that the world has no category for it. So, they call it intense. They call it obsessed. They call it too much. Good. That's how you know you're getting warm. Because warm never changed the world. Warm never started revolutions. Warm never walked into the unknown and returned with keys to the future. Only fire does that. Only the unstoppable do that. You're not here to survive. You're here to shift atmospheres, to crack ceilings, to walk into generational rooms and rebuild the floor beneath your family name. You're not just here for you. You're here for the ones watching quietly, the ones who haven't found their roar yet, the ones who are praying for someone like you to prove it can be done. So prove it. Every day. Not with talk, with transformation. Prove it when it's inconvenient. Prove it when no one claps. Prove it when quitting whispers your name like a lullaby. You've already buried that voice. You've already held your own funeral for the version of you who needed permission. The old you isn't coming back. And that's why the new you cannot lose. Because the new you doesn't stop when it's hard. The new you doesn't slow when it's heavy. The new you only knows forward. And forward is your home now. So carry the weight. Own the crown. Move through the world like you were built for this. Because you were. This path wasn't assigned to the strongest. It was assigned to the most decided. And you decided not to tiptoe, not to test the waters, but to step in fully, head high, heart open, unstoppable. This isn't a phase. This is a forever switch. This is the line in the sand where your old life ends and your true self begins. So take one more step. Say one more yes to discipline. Say one more no to distraction. Say one more I do to the destiny that's been waiting patiently for you to rise. Because when you act as if you are unstoppable, eventually everything around you will move to match the force you've become. And when it does, when the world begins to bend to your rhythm, when opportunities start aligning with your energy, when momentum becomes your baseline, you will not be surprised. You'll be ready. Because this wasn't luck. This wasn't chance. This wasn't magic. This was the quiet war you fought with your old self and won. This was the price you paid in discipline, in sacrifice, in solitude, while everyone else looked for shortcuts. This was the result of moving like a legend, long before the world knew your name. And now they will know. Not because you screamed, not because you chased fame, but because you became undeniable. You became the example. You became the one they speak about in rooms you've never entered. You became the story that reminds others what's possible. But even now, you know this is not the finish line. Because the unstoppable don't settle. The unstoppable don't plateau. The unstoppable don't peak. They build peaks. They build mountains from moments. They build movements from commitment. They build legacy from laser-focused execution. And legacy? It's not built on a good idea. It's built on relentless identity. So keep going. Keep sharpening. Keep living like someone who knows the world will catch up not because you're ahead, but because you refuse to stop moving. You are no longer a product of your environment. You are now the environment. You shape the room. You raise the temperature. You set the tone. Because your life is no longer accidental. It's intentional. Your schedule reflects your standards. Your circle reflects your vision. Your habits reflect your belief. And your belief, it is unshakable. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are now immovable. This is what happens when you act as if you are unstoppable. You become the gravity. You become the force. You become the fire that never burns out, because your flame isn't fueled by hype, it's fueled by truth. The truth that says, you've already won. Not because the scoreboard says so, but because you never walked off the field. You stayed. You stood. You fought. And now you rise. Rise into rooms you once felt too small for. Rise into opportunities you once feared you'd fumble. Rise into your name, your gift, your mission with no apology and no retreat. Because this version of you does not shrink. This version of you does not beg. This version of you does not ask, am I ready? They answer, I was built for this. So take this moment. Breathe it in, not as a pause, but as a promise. A vow that from this point forward, every breath you take, every choice you make, every battle you face will carry the echo of a single decision. I am unstoppable. And now that you've claimed it, not whispered it, not wished it, but declared it with every cell in your being, the universe listens. Because the universe doesn't respond to noise, it responds to clarity. And your clarity is thunder now. Your presence is prophecy. Your breath is the beat of an unstoppable rhythm, one that can no longer be silenced, paused, or contained. You've crossed a threshold few ever do. Not because they can't, but because they never choose to. They choose easy. You chose evolution. They choose comfort. You chose calling. They choose delay. You chose now. Now is your home. Now is your launch pad. Now is where the unstoppable version of you breathes, thrives, commands, builds, leads. Because the future does not belong to the hesitant. It belongs to the embodied. To those who act like the vision is not someday, but this day. To those who don't negotiate with discipline, who don't flirt with effort, who don't bargain with mediocrity. To those who decide once and then never forget. That's who you are now. You don't need reminders. You are the reminder, the living proof that grit beats gifted, that decisions beat circumstances, that identity beats adversity every time. You are no longer the one trying to get ready. You are ready. And if fear still whispers, let it talk. You'll just keep walking. Because courage was never the absence of fear, it's the refusal to obey it. And now your pace, it doesn't slow for opinions. It doesn't bend to doubt. It doesn't stop to explain itself to those who lack the capacity to see your mission. Because explanations are for the uncertain. But your life now is a statement. Your work is a sermon. Your resilience is a revelation. And you no longer ask, what if I fail? You ask, what if I never become everything I'm capable of? That question haunts the average, but it fuels the unstoppable. So burn it into your spirit. This is no longer a season. This is a standard. This is not a phase. This is a foundation. This is not hype. This is your homecoming. The moment your actions, your words, your thoughts, and your energy all said the same thing. I'm not just in this. I'm not just after this. I am this. You are the grit. You are the fire. You are the force. So let the world watch. Let them wonder. Let them whisper your name behind closed doors while you build a life they never saw coming. Because you didn't wait. You didn't ask. You didn't quit. You acted as if you were unstoppable. And now you are.